Right then, India sailed through to the Super 8 stage unscathed, completely in control, undefeated. But everyone says this is where the tournaments start. This is the business end, the Super 8s. Each game will bring a lot of challenges. And to begin with, India have a team that they faced in the last T20 World Cup final. So in that sense, it's a repeat of the final that we saw last time around. Sunil Gavaskar joins us live on this broadcast. Anyway, for now, I know we were building that India-Pakistan game because of the history that the two countries share. But in cricketing terms, would you say this is India's biggest game this tournament now? Finalists from last time, South Africa?
Definitely, yes. Because look, I think Australia would have been the other big game that India would have had to face. But they're not in the tournament. So clearly, as the South Africa game becomes a really big game for India, not just because India beat them in the 2024 ICC T20 World Cup final, but because in recent times, the South African team have been outstanding in all forms of the game. They beat India in a test series. And so I think, yes, they're certainly on a high.
Since you mentioned that, Australia was the team that many were expecting to come from this group, thoughts on Australia during this World Cup? What did you make of it? What is it? They were just off the boil, or the team wasn't really up to the mark? And an extension of that, Zimbabwe's, undefeated record in this tournament. If you could just tell us a bit about Australia and Zimbabwe.
Australia, I think, missed their top bowlers. It makes a difference in a tournament like this. You need experience as well as bowlers who can get you wickets at the top and bowl steadily in the middle and take wickets at the fag end of the innings as well. So without Hazelwood and Pat Cummins, who have been outstanding players in the T20 format as well, with Mitchell Starc already retired from the game, they were certainly their bowling didn't lack any. Didn't have any firepower, and therefore they were easy to score off. And on the other hand, because even at the top of the order with Mitchell Marsh, the skipper, being unavailable for the first couple of games, and that can have a blow because you want the nominated skipper to be available from the beginning. So that was a bit of a blow. They didn't ever get off to a very good start, and they didn't quite have the middle order. I mean, if you drop Steve Smith from your team, then it just tells you something. So clearly, Australia were probably not at their best squad, and that's why they paid the price and were out. On the other hand, Zimbabwe have been under the radar, much like New Zealand is, and therefore not much expectations of them. Maybe not even at home, and even certainly in the cricketing world, not a lot of people took them seriously. So it's good to see that they have surprised more than a few people. And they're the team to watch out for because look, this is the ultra short format. A couple of overs here, a couple of overs there can change the game completely.
Since we now have a situation, Simon, this is one of the hottest topics being discussed in the cricketing universe. You've got one group, which includes, of course, India, with all table toppers, teams that have been undefeated in the tournament so far. On the other hand, you have a group where teams that have finished second. I know these are pre-decided, seedings are pre-decided, but for those that point out that why is it pre-decided, why not have it like other games where you can actually have a mix and match of informed team as well as teams that have stuttered a bit? What do you make of that?
Firstly, why bring this up now? Why was this not brought up before the start of the tournament? Why bring this up now? That is the question to be asked of all these people who are asking those questions. The reason that I can think of, and maybe ICC can better explain it, is that the logistics. It is not being played in one country. It's played in two countries. There is international travel. There's immigration, customs, everything to be taken care of. And although the World Cup teams would get priority as far as immigration and customs is concerned, there is still the question of booking, airline bookings, hotel bookings, all those. Every team doesn't travel with the same number of people. Some teams travel with a support staff of 15, so they need maybe 30, 35, 40 rooms. Some teams travel with maybe 20, 22 altogether, so they need lesser rooms. So all those things have to be taken into account, and that perhaps is the reason why this pre-seeding took place.
Okay, I'm turning my attention to the game at hand. That's India versus South Africa. Now, one thing that we've seen with this Indian team so far is that you've got a lot of left-handers, and we saw South Africa focus with Adam Markram doing a lot of work in the nets, bowling a lot, and we know that he can bowl in the power play as well. We've seen some of the off spinners. Erasmus comes to mind, Sam Ayub comes to my mind, Aryan Dutt comes to my mind, which have done well against that Indian top order. Do you think that's a genuine concern? And if it is, what can India do about it? Maybe shuffle the batting order. I don't know. Some suggest that instead of Tilak, maybe have Sky at 3, Tilak at 4, get a right-hander somewhere. What do you make of it?
Well, they've done well against only one player so far. They've done well against Abhishek Sharma. So I don't think there is anything to worry about. Yes, I know even Ishan Kishan got out in the game the other day against Netherlands, but that is nothing to worry about. I don't think India will be, looking at which off spinner is going to come and start to get shivers. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think. I mean, it'll again be a question of what the score is at the end of the power play, and then decide whether it's going to be Surya Kumar Yadav who comes in at 3 or Tilak Verma who comes in at 3. That all depends on the situation at hand. How many runs are you chasing runs, or are you setting a target? All that will be taken into account if a wicket falls.
Well, actually, that is India's strength as well. They have quite a flexible batting order, if need be, as Mr. Gavaskar is also mentioning. They can always do that rotation in their batting order. It is a home game for India per se. The World Cup is happening at home, but, dare I say, this is South Africa's home. They've played 3 out of the 4 games this tournament. And I know India, Ahmedabad, they've played a lot of games, but this particular tournament, Ahmedabad hasn't been that high scoring a pitch that we've seen for some time now. So, that familiarity that South Africa have, no travel as well, 3 out of 4 games they've played, India have traveled. Any sort of advantage?
No, I don't think so. I don't think any particular advantage, apart from the fact that they're familiar. So many of their players play in the IPL, so they're certainly familiar with the Indian conditions. They're certainly familiar with the pressure of the Indian crowds, because whichever franchise they are playing, when they play an away game, they feel that pressure. So clearly, I think they will be used to the crowd being against them. So I don't think that's going to worry the South Africans too much. It's a different South African team. This is not the same South African team which used to stumble at key moments, because ever since that win in the World Test Championship last year, it's a whole different South African team. They got over that little thing where they were always fumbling and stumbling and losing. So I think they got over that with that fine win over Australia. It was a very good win. It's not easy to chase 280 in the 4th innings against an Australian team. And Markram led the way with a brilliant 100, and Temba Bavuma also gave him company. Now, Markram is the captain here, so I don't think we should be too worried about what the South Africans' situation will be like. In fact, if anything, the South Africans is the team that India will have to watch out for.
That's right. Talking about watching out for, so far, toss hasn't been very important in the tournament because dew really hasn't set in majority of the venues that we saw. But on the other hand, India have only batted first throughout this tournament. They're undefeated, but they've only batted first. They haven't chased it. Toss in this game, does it become slightly more important compared to what we've had so far?
Well, 3 days ago, when India played Netherlands, the dew was there, but not to the extent that it could trouble any bowler. There was some dew towards the end of the match. So, yes, I think for the Indian spinners are concerned, that would be something that they would be, a little bit concerned about. And maybe that is the reason why that match also India batted first, having won the toss, because they wanted to give their bowlers the sort of getting used to bowling with a wet ball. Otherwise, normally what you would do, and I would imagine that, what Surya Kumar Yadav would do in case Markram calls wrong, is that I think he will opt to field first.
That's really interesting. So, a word on India's 11. We've heard from Surya Kumar Yadav. I don't know if you're aware of it. He was asked that, would you be tempted to bring a Sanju? Again, I was talking about a right-hander coming in and maybe for Tilak or Abhishek, we don't know. He says, no, it's too early. I believe in this team. You think that's the right way to go?
Yes. I think you don't want to make any, big changes unless there's injury or illness or something like that. Now, let this team be a settled team. I don't think there should be too much to worry about. I think they've got a very, very good team in there. It's only a matter of whether you want to pick an Arshdeep or a Washington Sundar or a Kuldeep Yadav. I think that will be the only discussion in the team selection committee. But otherwise, the rest of the team looks all settled.
What would you do, Saiva, if you were in the decision-making capacity?
I'd stick to Washington, Sundar, because it gives a little depth to the batting. See, if you're not getting the start, and we are struggling with one batter at the moment. So if you're not getting a start, it's always good to have a little something at the bottom at number 9,
Okay.
and somebody who's a pretty useful T20 bowler as well. Somebody who can come and bowl 4 overs, and he's an outstanding fielder. So yes, I would look at Washington being in this spot.
And finally, Saiva, your prediction for this game. Where do you think this game will be won or lost?
I think that this game will be won or lost on the fielding. Both teams have got some cracking good batters. So the fielding on the boundary is going to be the key. I've mentioned it often in commentary, and I've written about it as well. You want your fast-moving fielders on the boundary, the slow-moving fielders in the circle, because a single will be stolen anyway. It's on the boundary where they can run left, right, and stop that boundary and only concede 2 runs. That will make the difference. So India needs to get that field placing absolutely spot on.
So you heard it from the legend. We keep talking about India's batting, South Africa's bowling. It's going to be the fielding where India have fallen short here in this tournament. I must say, they've dropped a few chances. But the good thing is the full practice session that they had on Friday, they practiced for a good 2 hours on their fielding. So that's some encouraging news coming in from the Indian camp. Here's a reminder, don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today. All our coverage to the build-up of that India-South Africa. Of course, the T20 World Cup continues.